For today's lesson, we are going to create a mixed medium background. We're going to create a surface that has a variety of colors with good mixtures and texture. So before we begin, we want to take a look at our color wheel. There are certain colors that we do not want to pair up when paint is wet. For example, complementary colors like green and red are going to create a neutral brown color. We want to avoid those colors mixing because we don't want our background to have muddy, dingy, yucky colors. Other colors to avoid mixing are colors across from each other, like orange and blue, or yellow and violet. The other thing you need to be careful about is mixing together secondary colors. So if, for example, you have orange and violet on the same paper, they look beautiful together, but if they interact and mix, they create a brown. This is because the primary colors red, blue, and yellow, when mixed together, make neutral colors like browns and grays and things like that. So we need to be very careful with yellow when with colors when adding them across the board. So you can see here so what I would like you to do is select an analogous color scheme. Analogous color schemes are colors that are beside each other on the color wheel. And typically this is a safe combination of colors to pick because colors that are beside each other mix really well together. Pause the video and pick 2 to 3 colors that you are going to put into your background. So once you have your color scheme, you are going to begin. I think I am going to create a background that has blues and violets. Because blue and red mix well together to make violets, I'm going to stay in this range here. You are going to be able to use a variety of art supplies at home. You can use the watercolor pencils. The watercolor pencils look a lot like colored pencils, but when they get wet, they are going to create a watercolor texture. You can use liquid watercolors. You can use palette watercolor, and you can use tempera paints. So we are going to begin. Starting off with the lesson, you are going to take your paint and you are just going to drizzle it. A little bit goes a long way. If you are using the watercolor pencils, you are going to want to color some on the paper. If you are using liquid watercolors, you're just going to drizzle some of that around the paper. Remember, a little bit goes a long way, so you don't need to add too much. I'm going to add in a little bit of white just to create a variety or range of value. And then I am going to use a paintbrush with some water to start spreading the paint around. This is what happens when you add water to the watercolor pencils. They turn into a watercolor. If you are using the watercolor palette, you are going to add water from a bucket or cup, and you are going to just swirl gently and add your color to the paper. Or you can start spreading the thicker paint around the paper. You'll notice that I'm kind of tapping my brush to spread the color. I am not doing long strokes with my paintbrush. The reason for this is because I would like a lot of range of color, meaning that I don't want to see one big blob of color on the paper. I want to see a variety of color that interacts with each other. So ideally, your goal is to have 3 colors on your paper when you are done. I love adding water to my liquid watercolors. It helps dilute them and spread the color further. One thing to know about paint is that a little bit goes a long way, and you can do a lot with just that little bit of paint. I keep wanting to see more purple, so I'm going to add a little bit more. And I think I'm going to add some more white. So I'm just kind of tapping my brush and spreading the paint around to create interesting texture and visual look for my backgrounds. Feel free to explore and experiment with the possibilities of your paints. This is just one of the many ways that you can interact with your paints. Another cool thing you can do with your paintings is when you're done, you can carefully pick them up and manipulate your painting by turning the paper around and letting gravity kind of control where the color is going. And you can also add more paint to your paper to create interesting dynamic drips and things like that down your art. You can always add water to help the paint move further and interact more on the paper. And that is how you create a mixed medium background using an analogous color scheme.